All right, so today we're going to talk about the 4 main reasons why commercial ice machines break. First reason is, in my experience, usually a water issue, and that's a lack of quality water. So really hard water or a lack of proper water filtration. So a high quality ice machine filter is the best insurance policy that a person can buy for a commercial ice machine. So let's talk about water quality for a second. So you've heard of lime scale, or just scale or hard water. Those scale in water is made up of calcium and magnesium. A simple way to put it is to think of crushed rocks there would be a large scale, but that's what it is. So as that goes through a water system, especially in an ice machine, what's happening is the purest water freezes first. So as that water is trickling down an evaporator, the water freezes on the evaporator, and the purest water is what freezes first. So every time that water is going over, it's more and more mineral laden with calcium and magnesium, or hard water scale. So when your ice drops off the evaporator, you have relatively clean, pure ice. All of the water that's left over in the trough of the ice machine is really heavily laden scale minerals. And if you don't have a good filter that helps take some of that out, the longer that your machine is in operation and the longer that it makes ice, the longer that scale is going to have the opportunity to make contact with the rest of your machine and start to leave deposits inside your ice machine. So we've got some different pictures that I'll show of some ice machines that are just full of calcium and magnesium. The problem with lime scale in an ice machine is that lime scale will get inside your valves, it'll get inside the pumps, it'll get inside the distribution tubes, it'll get inside, on like a Manitowoc ice machine up at the top, you have a distribution tube that has tiny little holes in it, and those holes will get stopped up. On a Hoshizaki, it's got the same thing. It's got tubes that are horizontal that go towards the back, and it's got tiny little holes, and that's where the water comes out and drops down the evaporators, and those will get stopped up. Two of the most common things that we see are the water inlet valve, where the water comes into the machine, is a little solenoid valve, and it's electronically controlled, and it will open and close, and the more scale that's going through there, it will cause that valve to seize, and sometimes it'll seize open or closed. So open, water will just constantly going into your ice machine, and that's where you get your overflowing trough. And the water will just drain into the bin and down the drain. So we see that a lot. The other thing the other thing on the inlet valve is it'll seize closed, and you won't get any water to your ice machine. And then the dump valve is the same way. So the dump valve is there to, when the ice machine finishes making ice, it dumps all of the remaining water out of the machine because it's usually full of higher level of hard water minerals, calcium, magnesium. And so the machine wants to dump that out and bring fresh water in to make a new batch of ice. That dump valve, if it fails, open or closed, if it fails open, you're going to be making ice, and the whole time you're making ice, the water is just going down the drain. So you're constantly bringing in new water. The problem with that is when you bring in new water, you're bringing in water at 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 degrees, and we're trying to freeze that water. So it takes a lot longer to freeze the ice. And can very commonly cause errors. The other thing is if the dump valve sticks shut, then your ice machine isn't going to have the opportunity to get rid of that mineral-laden water, and then your ice machine is going to get really dirty really fast. And those are, we see those things all the time. So we recommend a high-quality water filter. At TriPoint, we have our own filter, custom labeled water filter called the TP2000. And we've done a lot of tests. We've got some other YouTube videos where we went and got like the standard EverPure i2000 ice machine filters versus some different ice machine filters on Amazon and some really low cost entry filters. And we tested them, we cut them open, and so we did a big test on what filter's the best. So I won't spoil it for you. Go watch that video and you'll see the results. So yeah, first thing is get clean water to your ice machine. Reverse osmosis systems are great, and or a good filtration. Good filtration also not only is going to remove the calcium, magnesium, lime scale from the water, but it will also, they usually have a carbon block inside, and that carbon block is going to remove organic materials. It's also going to remove chlorine. Chlorine's not great for ice machines because you create chloramines, and those chloramines will cause your O-rings inside the ice machine to swell over time. And it depends on where you're at, the city water and how they treat it, whether they use ammonia or chlorine. So anyway, it can cause the seals and O-rings inside the ice machines to fail. So we put a carbon filter, which is really common, to remove those things, and it's going to help with odors in your water and taste. So again, number one thing is poor water quality. Number two, top four things of why ice machines break commonly is just lack of maintenance. Even if you have a good water filter on your machine, most ice machine manufacturers, in fact, I don't know one that doesn't recommend having your ice machine professionally serviced at least every 6 months. A good quality service company is going to come in, they're going to disassemble the ice machine completely. So they're going to take the water trough out, they're going to take the pumps out, they're going to take the floats out, they're going to take your dump valves out, they're going to take your inlet valves out, they're going to take your distribution tubes out, they're going to take all of that stuff out, and they're going to clean it each piece individually, and try and get that scale off. You can't always get the scale off. Depending on the age, who's cleaned it, if it's been properly cleaned in the past, there's a lot of different factors that can cause issues, and so you can't get all of the scale off all the time. Sometimes we've been able to get them like brand new, but we can't get it all off, but we can get a lot of it off. And the longer that an ice machine stays on a cleaning cycle and is cleaned properly, consistently, the better that machine gets over time. The more scale we're able to move. So good, proper maintenance. The other thing about cleaning an ice machine is they get mold and slime, and they can get disgusting. In fact, I found a lot of guys that work in the ice machine industry don't actually eat ice because they can be gross, and a lot of places don't know how to properly have their machines maintained or even know that they need to. So aside, on the other side of the scale build up in the ice machines, you get mold and slime. And so the way that we inhibit that is by cleaning those machines. So we'll go in, disassemble the whole thing, clean it with a good metal safe or nickel safe ice machine cleaner, depending on what machine you have, and then we'll sanitize the machine. And so when we sanitize it, we run through a food grade ice machine sanitizer, and then that'll help kill all the mold and get all the slime out of the machine. And again, we can't always get it all. There's a lot of times that mold and slime has stained those machines and the rubber tubing and the plastics, and we can kill it and get it off, but the staining is still there, and sometimes it doesn't look great, but the machine is clean and sanitized. So that would be lack of proper maintenance. The other side of the maintenance side is the refrigeration side. So we've got compressors and condensers and evaporators and TXVs and filter dryers and all these things that are on the refrigeration side that make the ice machine actually get cold. The number one thing for an ice machine as far as maintenance goes, to keep from having ice machine failure, is keeping the condenser clean. The condenser is what moves heat, and it's, they're located in kitchens or outside, up on roofs if you have a remote, and those condensers can get chock full of grease and dirt and food particles and all kinds of stuff like that, and then the machine doesn't move air the way it needs to, and they get hot, and then that causes just a ripple effect through the refrigeration system. So the best thing you can do, keep the condenser clean. So the third top reason why commercial ice machines break is refrigeration issues. Your condenser is what moves the heat. If that condenser gets too hot, or the fan motor goes out, or a fan cycle switch goes out, that can create a myriad of issues down the road. On the refrigeration side, I think the thing that we see that fails the most is probably the thermostatic expansion valve. That's what regulates the amount of refrigerant that goes into the evaporator where the ice is actually made. It's what actually makes it get cold. And then probably condenser fans, condenser fan motors, fan cycle switches. The fan cycle switch tells the motor when to come on and off. And if those fail, that condenser fan motor either doesn't run or runs all the time. If it doesn't run, the machine will trip off on head pressure, which means the pressure gets way too high. When the pressure gets too high, it can cause compressor issues, and oil issues, and you can get acids and waxes and all kinds of things in your refrigeration system. So refrigeration issues, I'd say, would be number 3. Number 4 is improper installation. Is the machine installed right? Ice machines, it looks pretty simple. It's got an electrical, it's got a water line going in, it's got a drain line coming out. If you've got a water cooled, you've got 2 water lines going in and a water line coming out that's going down the drain or back to a chiller. Improper installation. So I'd say the number one most thing that we find most of the time due to an improper installation is clearance around the machine. The machine's got to breathe. We've got to move air around the machine, and so we recommend at least a foot of space on every side of the machine. Now, Manitowoc, I believe they say 5 to 6 inches, but Manitowoc will actually send you a piece of plastic that goes on the back of the machine when you install it that gives you that depth and also keeps air from recycling from the condenser, keeps hot air from recycling through your condenser. So making sure that you have the proper amount of space on either side and the back of the machine and the top of the machine. If you don't have that, they make kits that are called top discharge kits, where instead of discharging air out the sides, we can discharge air out the top if you don't quite have that space. The number 2 thing that we find for improper ice machine installations is the drain line. Number 1, the drain line has to be big enough. We don't do anything less than 3/4 of an inch. But more importantly is on the drain line, we have to have a vent. What that vent does is allow air into the drain as water's going down it, allowing the water to go down the drain smoothly. If you don't have the vent, what happens is the ice machine doesn't drain water properly, and you retain more of your mineral-laden water, which, again, we talked about that earlier, cause your ice machine to get more dirty. So the way that we do that is we'll come out of the back of the machine with a straight piece of pipe and a T, and then we'll go up with a piece of PVC about a foot tall, and then out of the bottom of the T we go down to the drain, and so that allows air to get into the drain line so that properly drains. Just like on houses, at your house, if you look up on your roof line, you'll see pieces of pipe sticking out. Those are vents for the water drain. All right, so to recap, number 1 top reason for ice machines breaking is bad water, lack of ice machine filter, water filter. Number 2 is lack of proper maintenance. If the machine's not being taken apart and cleaned professionally at least every 6 months, and when I mean clean professionally, a lot of companies are going to go out there, they pour some cleaner in there, they turn it on the clean cycle, and they walk away. We're pulling that whole machine apart, disassembling, scrubbing everything, cleaning it all real good, putting it all back together. Sanitizing whenever you finish cleaning. Number 3 is basic refrigeration failures, condenser fans, condensers getting dirty, fan toggle switches, pressure controls, dryers getting stopped up, refrigerant leaks, things like that. And number 4 is just improper installation. You got to know how to install that ice machine, how to install it with the correct drains, with the correct water lines. We do 3/4 inch John Guest water lines on anything under 1,000 pounds. Anything over 1,000 pounds, we do 1/2 inch water lines. If you have any questions or would like to get your ice machine clean or would like to do it yourself and not quite sure where to start, give us a call. We'd love to walk our customers through stuff like this and help them out. If you need a filter, let us know. We drop ship these all across the country, and we can get you a good water filter for your ice machine. We'll send you the filter in the head and a lot of the fittings to get to the most common fittings that you would need to get a good filter in a machine. So we have offices in Lubbock, Texas and Austin, Texas, or you can visit our website at tripointrefrigeration.com.